we have our closing plenary, Badalte Rang, Rewiring Masculinities for an Equitable Future. On the dais, we have Kanta Singh, Deputy Country Representative, UN Women India. Kanta has over 25 years of experience in the management of pro-women development programs. Kanta has worked with national and international organizations to promote women in formal economy, sports and politics. Kanta's last assignment was with UNDP, where she spent 9 years. Currently, Kanta is the Deputy Representative with UN Women India. She is a former national level volleyball player. Kanta is a Shivaning Gurukul Fellow from University of Oxford. Welcome, Kanta ma'am. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Rukmini Sen, Dean, School of Heritage, Research and Management, B.R. Ambedkar University. Professor Rukmini teaches courses and does research at the cusp of sociology, law, gender, kinship and culture. She was co-investigator for a project titled A History of Gender Training in Delhi under the Dyson Fellowship Award, University of Melbourne. She has been a member of core group on Women, National Human Rights Commission, New Delhi. She is the recipient of WISCOM, Women in Security, Conflict Management and Peace, Sahas Awards, recognizing her continuous engagement with curricula using an intersectional lens and courageous efforts to bring structural shifts in the everyday functioning of higher education spaces through innovation, pedagogy and counseling. She is also currently serves as one of the advisory board members of CEQUIN. Welcome, Dr. Rukmini. Next, I would like to invite Natasha Joshi, Associate Director from RNP. Natasha Joshi is a development sector professional who has worked with multilateral organizations, foundations and government across India, Mexico and Singapore, and currently serves as an Associate Director at Rohini, Nilekani Philanthropies. At RNP, Natasha leads on strategy, portfolio building, and sense development and psychology from Harvard University. She holds a degree in human development and psychology from Harvard University, and her writings have been published in several places like Stanford Social Innovation Reviews, Alliance Magazine, Live Mint, India Development Review, Swarajya Magazine, Desi Writers Lounge, and others. Welcome, Natasha ma'am. I would also like to invite Sara, Abdullah Pilot, and Laura Krishnamurthy Prabhu, co-founders of CEQUIN, to join us on the panel.
Long day of very intensive conversation, but it's so wonderful to see the hall completely full. So that means that we've been really talking about something very, very relevant. I'll just quickly hand it over to Natasha because you've been a partner in this process from day one, from the time that we started ideating to till this, till where we are here today. So I really want you to share your thoughts on this.
It's been really wonderful. I just want to congratulate CEQUIN straight up for the kind of curation you've done, the conversations you've held space for. It's been fascinating. So thank you for that. I think I'm also very delighted because I remember when we talked about this idea कि हम micro-influencers and influencers को हम support करेंगे as a foundation to take forward this work on masculinity. And it's not a very traditional funding model, because that's not what you do. Usually foundations don't look at new media as a very viable space to support. But I think हमारा जो काम RNP में है, रोहिणी नीलकनी philanthropies में, वो 5-6 साल पहले शुरू हुआ, like Rohini talked about. And हमने काफ़ी कुछ सीखा है from the field, from your work. And one thing we learned was that ये जो gender norms and especially masculinity का जो topic है, it's not, you can't just tackle it intellectually. तो आप उसको सिर्फ cerebrally, intellectually, बहुत philosophically उसको नहीं tackle कर सकते. You have to go into pop culture, you have to go into very local language, you have to go into also very affective mediums. So audio visual, music, art, poetry. So you have to tap into some of these spaces if you want to get through to young people in general, and then of course boys. So I think I'm very delighted to say that it seems like that thesis has played out and it seems to have been a really good experience, and it's wonderful to see that it's changed the lives of the people who have been involved, so the influencers, but also I think that clearly all of the people that are looking at this content and just the population of this content online is great. So I hope there's lots more of this.
You have been, with CEQUIN from early days, 2009, when we actually got together and started talking about this topic, right at its outset. And it's been a long journey, and here we are today. Also, the incredible work you all are doing at Ambedkar University. You all offered a course on masculinities. So, and you've been here today listening to all the conversations. So can you please, give us some of your insights?
Thank you so much, Laura and Sara, for having me here. And again, huge congratulations for this really amazing work that CEQUIN is doing. And it's actually a very, very tough act after the last two wonderful sessions for us to do any kind of closing comments. But at the same point of time, maybe having been here since morning and also hearing these last two really, really significant sessions, just thinking through a few things which I like to share. Given that this session is also titled Badalte Rang, and thinking around the future, I was actually, as I suppose the troubles of being a teacher is that to think about the future, one actually goes to the past in some ways. And that was where, I was just thinking that one of the earliest experiences with respect to men being absent from women's organizations. And I'm talking about the 90s when I was part of an autonomous women's group in Kolkata, Nari Nirjaton Protirodh Mancho. We used to meet every Friday, and there was constant conversations among some of us who were younger at that point of time, asking that why can't we actually have some men attend these meetings? And there were just serious denial, anger, and one of course understood what women's spaces meant. And that's actually, in some senses, an important women's movement history that we need to remember. The creation of women's spaces and the fact that when men shouldn't be there in those spaces, especially as members of those women's groups. They can come in, with some conversation, etc., but not as members. It's the same time, around the 1990s, that the discipline that I teach, which is sociology, we are also seeing electives around sociology of women starting. It's an elective. It's not still compulsory. The reason I say it is, this is actually around end 90s, early 2000s. By the time I come to Ambedkar University, Delhi in 2010-11, as a part of the sociology program, Gender and Society is a compulsory course that all sociology students have to study. And Gender Studies is a full MA program at Ambedkar University with masculinities, bodies, sexualities as 3 different papers that are part of that Gender Studies program. So I think I'm just trying to tell that there is such a huge transformation and shift that has happened also in the academic space. But going back to the organizational or movement space, the 1990s, we are seeing also the starting of things like Pirito Purush Sangshad. And this is basically persecuted men, and they coming up with their organizations, or Purush Hakka Samrakshan Samiti or Patni Atyachar Virodhi Morcha. And I'm actually trying, today I was thinking as I was listening to all of this, I was actually trying to remember that these actually are also earliest formations of men's group at the same time that we are, hearing Satishji and the others engaging with the men's and boys' questions. We are also seeing these kinds of groups starting in the 1990s, which are actually aimed to undo what the Feminist Reform Project was all about. And in some ways, a culmination of this is actually the Save India Family Foundation, which starts in 2005. And I still remember, because I used to teach gender always, I used to actually ask the students to look at the website of the Save India Foundation family, and there was actually something like a chaku on a man's heart, which was bleeding, and then 498A, 498A, 498A being written all around, clearly suggesting the misuse of, these kinds of laws. So one is the question of misuse, the other, again, much later, say something around post-2010s, we have demands for gender neutrality of laws. So misuse of laws on the one hand and gender neutrality of laws on the other hand. This is, in some senses, the shift. Then, of course, eventually we have this Men Engage Alliance, which happens in the middle of the 2000s. And there is a larger discourse, clearly. And today, there have been panelists who are much more experienced and senior to me who have talked about the processes of engaging men and boys. I'd like to just reflect a little and then stop on, I think, some of the things that I myself have either done or have been in some ways compelled to also reflect upon as a teacher, teaching courses on gender in a public university system in Delhi. And one of the things is that while I've been teaching gender and society for quite some time in the undergraduate level, I think it is only in the last 2 iterations that I have very consciously included themes and readings around masculinity within the course. So Prem Chaudhary, the historian, has a really, really lovely piece around rural, North Indian, Haryana men, and what is it like to sit together in public spaces, and what does it do, etc. So that is a reading which I did introduce in the gender and society class for students to, kind of think around questions of public spaces, who occupies public spaces, men in those spaces, etc. The other is actually a reading which I'm yet to teach. I'm doing it in this iteration of the course, which is men who are working in parlors. And so this larger, of course, gig and, another kind of livelihood options. And what are the ways in which men are there, questions of economic precarity, definitely, is something that is there, but also opening up of different kinds of opportunities for a certain kind of men. So that's one set of things, just with respect to courses. But the other set of questions that one encounters, not just in gender and society courses, but, just as a teacher who has been around the campus for a long time, is how do you do discussions with students in the classroom and outside around questions of consent? And I think that has become a really, really important question to talk about. And in the morning, Dr. Sen was, talking about it. And I do feel that #MeToo, #Losha, and those kinds of questions did open up a conversation around consent very differently from the conversation around consent that happened in the women's movement, but through the question of rape primarily. But this conversation of consent was very different. It was to ask questions around or to grapple with intimacy. And the fact that we actually do not do discussions around intimacy. Either we shy away from it, or we are very shy to talk about it. Or, we are absolutely not trained to do a discussion around intimacy. And what happens when there are transgressions? What happens when there is a breach of trust? What happens when love goes sour? What happens when men face rejection from women, especially in situations of love? There was this, in the show that you did, there was this use of the word, "Meri bandi hai, tu kyun mere liye intezar," something like that. I think for the first time, I was doing a conversation with my students and I asked that, what are the kind of words that you use when you have to say that you love someone? And I was very curious, कि आजकल के लोग क्या use करते हैं? And I was told that one of the phrases that is used is banda and bandi. And, you know, it also showed the ways in which language, what is the vocabulary, what are the expressions. But then I think, you know, questions around intimacy, even questions around friendship, questions or discussions around what does a bro code mean, where, and, you know, what happens in these WhatsApp, all men students WhatsApp groups maybe. So I suppose these are actually questions that I don't think we discuss at length through courses in our higher educational institutions. We actually need much more collaboration with other organizations like CEQUIN and so many others here to do these conversations. I want to end by just also thinking that, you know, while on the one hand there was, you know, in the early 1990s, this Save the Family Foundation, undoing the feminist reform project, we are seeing in some senses closely similar things, but it is coming out in a very different way, and I'm kind of thinking about the Atul Subhash suicide and the long suicide note, and then to talk, how does one talk about, or how does the way in which male vulnerability is foregrounded in a way which is actually the risk that I felt that Rahul Bose was talking about in the morning. And yet, I do see that over the last few years, the number of men taking gender and society as an elective has actually gone up, which is a huge thing. And at the same point of time, wanting to actually also do discussions around fragility, around men's vulnerability, around the fact that humko to koi samajhte hi nahi hai. We don't have parents who we can talk to. So I'm just trying to think that how do we do these conversations among young adults in higher educational institutions on the one hand, and what is parallelly happening in the public women's movement, men engaging in the larger questions of gender equality. How do these conversations converge, I suppose, is something that one is reflecting on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rukmini. That was really perfect. I mean, the way you've kind of woven the picture of what was being spoken of here today from this morning session, and really rooting that in academia. And that it's something that Laura and I and at CEQUIN, whatever work we do, whatever projects we do, whatever modules we create, we are very careful about making sure that we tie that into what is being researched, what is being discussed, what is being taught at universities. We have very good relationships with lecturers and with colleges because of this. So I felt that it was so nice, and I hope it gives you all sitting here a flavor of the kind of work CEQUIN does, in the sense of the last panel was influencers, you know, it was social media, it was, you know, a different world. And then there's Rukmini, who's sitting here as a lecturer, as a researcher, and that is something that comes across in our work, and it's very important. I just wanted to really highlight that when we talk about things, or even the 3 or 4 days, like with the influencer, one of them said that, oh, you know, I thought, party karenge, enjoy karenge, fir pata nahi kya hua, because even those 3 days, it was very important for us to make sure that we are talking to them about issues in a very specific and in a very real and honest, but very heavily grounded in what Rukmini looks at, researches, writes papers, and lectures. So thank you for going through our day and, you know, planting us right back into a space that Laura and I are always very keen to be. And now we will come to Kanta. Kanta, also a dear friend, like Rukmini, has been with CEQUIN from the beginning as a formal, non-formal advisor, friend, well-wisher. She is now at the UN, and we would really like to hear from you, Kanta, about the kind of work that you've been doing with men and boys.
Yes, thank you, Sara, and congratulations, Laura, Sara, the team, Naseem. All of you have done remarkable work for last so many years that I have known you. In fact, some of the things that CEQUIN has done, I don't think any other NGO has done. Also, football for girls. It used to be my pet project when we started CEQUIN actually together. I was telling both of them that women in sports has to be part, and they all, of course, they were already planning. And I'm very happy that has gone so far and has changed social norms to the extent that now all of us, 100 people sitting here talking about different roles men and women play. At UN Women, we do 3 different things. We work, and any project that we start with social norms change. And that also means working with men and boys. So any discussion on ending violence against women, women peace and security, women's economic empowerment has to start with the family members, including men and the boys in the family. Because without which women don't get the required support that they need to have. एक तो वो पहला काम है. दूसरा ये है कि there's something called Unstereotype Alliance, and we have seen that advertisements play a very important role in changing mindsets. When you see a man washing utensils or doing dishes or clothes, putting laundry in the machine, even that changes the mindset of people by thinking that it's normal for a man to do that. So हमारे करीब 30 से ज़्यादा बड़ी एजेंसी जो है, बड़ी कंपनी जो है, वो उसके अनस्टीरियोटाइप अलायंस के मेंबर हैं, including हिंदुस्तान लीवर, and many of them have started changing the advertisements because we do look at their content that they put out on the TV and other social media platforms. तीसरा हम लोग जो काम करते हैं वो बहुत सारी और संस्थाओं के साथ मिलकर collaborate करते हैं to understand how men perceive women's issues. Women के issues का problem ये है कि we have been talking to women only in isolation. As a result, we never brought the other perspective as to how men perceive women's issues and how can they play a constructive role in solving some of the issues. मेरा personal exposure बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं था to work with men and boys, and Harish has been writing to us, and Satish and I attended a conference way back in 2004 in Nepal. That's right. I was really shocked to hear some of the testimonials of people who were talking there because बहुत सारे लोग ज़मीन से जुड़े हुए लोग थे वहाँ पे, सतीश जी being one, जो लोग अपने experiences share कर रहे थे. And मेरा वहाँ से दिमाग खुलना शुरू हुआ कि men कितनी ख़राब स्थिति में हैं कि उनको कोई भी engage नहीं करता है. घर में माँ बाप उनसे उनको they are born with a sense of entitlement, or definitely, but beyond that उनको अपने हाल पे छोड़ दिया जाता है. So whatever then they learn is from the peers. लड़कों से जो आसपास के लड़के खुजी छोकरे हैं वो उनसे सीखते हैं और उनकी भाषा, उनका चाल चलन, उनका जो बिहेवियर करने का एक जो तरीका है वो कहीं और से रिफाइन हो ही नहीं रहा है. और माँ बाप तो खैर लड़कियों को भी बहुत कुछ नहीं सिखाते हैं, लेकिन लड़कियों में एक दूसरे तरह की शिक्षा होती है. वो होती है कि आपको घर बसाना है, तो वो घर बसाने के लिए जो भी करना पड़ता है, लड़कियों को शिक्षा वहाँ उस तरह की मिलती है. लड़कों को ये मिलती है कि आप जो भी चाहे कर सकते हैं, आपको कोई नहीं रोकने वाला है यहाँ पे, और माँ बाप माफ़ कर देते हैं. फॉर एग्ज़ाम्पल, अगर लड़के की शादी अगर टूट गई है, माँ बाप उसको कोई मतलब ऑफकोर्स तकलीफ़ होती है, हम नॉट सेइंग तकलीफ़ नहीं होती है, लेकिन उसको एक्सेप्ट करने में दिक्कत नहीं है. उसको सपोर्ट करते रहेंगे थ्रू आउट टिल दे गेट हिम मैरिड अगेन. इफ़ अ गर्ल गेट्स डिवोर्स, शी रियली बिकम्स अ लाइबिलिटी. वैसे भी पैदा होते ही लाइबिलिटी है, बट डिवोर्स के बाद तो और भी दिक्कत हो जाती है. वैसे ही सेक्सुअलिटी की बात हो, चाहे पैसों की बात हो, चाहे लाइफ पार्टनर की बात हो, आई डोंट थिंक मैनी मैन हैव चॉइसेस देयर. एंड प्रॉब्लम इज कॉन्फ्लिक्ट इज दैट यंग बॉयज़ हु आर सिटिंग हियर, और बहुत सारे इन्फ्लुएंसर्स भी जो बात कर रहे थे यहाँ पे, कि देयर करेंट एनवायरनमेंट एक्चुअली motivates them to go out and look for a partner of choice. और उनके घर के हालात वैसे हैं नहीं कि वो अपनी मर्जी की लड़की भी चूज़ कर लें या किसी से बात कर लें और गर्लफ्रेंड ले लें। तो हम बहुत उन चीज़ों को ट्रिविलाइज करने लग जाते हैं कि मैं, जैसे वो साथी कह रहे थे कि मैं बर्तन कर देता हूँ। That is just the beginning of how you start understanding a woman's role. Very important, but then we don't limit ourselves to just helping a woman doing utensils or doing dishes, right? It goes much more beyond that to understand कि बहुत सारे structural barriers हैं women की lives में जो men ने create किए हुए हैं, violence being one. If a man and a woman goes out for a walk in the evening, किससे डर है औरत को? आदमी से। अगर आदमी अपने हाथ और अपनी जुबान कंट्रोल में रख ले तो इट कुड बी ए सेफ प्लेस फॉर वुमेन। तो उस लेवल की बात उनसे करने वाला कोई भी नहीं है कि भाई सबको अधिकार है। इफ़ यू आर ट्राइंग टू टेक समबडी एल्सेस राइट्स, ये आपको उसका अधिकार नहीं है, लेकिन उस लेवल की कोई बात नहीं करता। तो आई डोंट थिंक देयर आर इनफ प्लेटफॉर्म्स दैट हरीश हैज़ क्रिएटेड फॉर एग्जाम्पल, or many of the other people who are sitting here must have also created those spaces. I think we need to create these safe spaces even for men to talk about their issues, because it's not just only women have issues, young men have multiple issues, and that's how जब उनको guidance नहीं मिलती तो मुझे लगता है कि बहुत सारे actions जो है misguided हो जाते हैं। I remember an incident, एक CM साहब थे, मैं without naming him, so हम उनसे बात कर रहे थे कि आपके स्टेट में बहुत वायलेंस है, ऐसे ऐसे है, and he called his finance minister there in the room and there was a lot of media and he said, आप बताइए साहब, आपने पजामा किसकी मर्जी से पहना सुबह? You know, we start trivializing issues then. उन्होंने कहा मेरी बीबी की पसंद से जी। देख लो फिर कहते हो जो आप कह रहे हमारे स्टेट में लड़कियों औरतों की नहीं चलती। I am saying we need to think beyond these immediate things. We need to think about how we can change this world, which can be better for men as well as women, where we start trusting each other. Women don't trust men for multiple reasons, ना पैसों के हिसाब से, ना अपनी सेफ्टी के हिसाब से, ना कोई इमोशनल स्पेस के हिसाब से. And that is where we need to start new conversations. So thank you, Sara and Laura, for doing that work, and particularly with young men as influencers. And I'm sure when they hear from, young men hear from these influencers, their mindset will change faster. But not just one thing, we also try to complement it by multiple other things like advertisements, like what you also had a media campaign, like you had also celebrity champions who can talk about these issues. I think we all need to think of innovative ways to bring in lot more energy into these discussions, because आज के दिन किसी के लिए भी संभव नहीं है अगर हम अकेले अपनी बात करेंगे तो the world will not look beautiful if we keep doing what we have been doing so far. We have to change the narrative, and that what Rukmini ma'am was saying, वो शिक्षा से, वो शिक्षण संस्थाओं से, वो अलग-अलग तरह के input से change होगा. I think all of us need to start afresh and bring in lot more energy into redefining, restructuring men and women relationships. Thank you.
Is it working? Yeah. What an amazing day. It's been intense. We started out with, some really inspiring thoughts from Rohini, where she left us with, started the day with a sense of hope. I think for me, that's the most important thing to take away today. You're talking about, these young men being the hope. I think all of us are feeling very hopeful. Shombi talked about the context of the kind of work that we're doing in a global scenario, talked about the challenges of meeting gender equity and the absolute criticality of the work of engaging men and boys. Rahul's conversation, I think, had everyone's spellbound, rapt attention. He spoke so passionately about the issue, and what was really heartening was that you cannot allow the wrong set of men to be hijacking this conversation. For me, that I think was the most important takeaway. He said, yes, this is important, but it's more important to be doing gender equity work. And you know, I think that was really important, and I think it was reiterated by Harish and others, which I think, you know, because for all of us who create these kind of forums, you're always worried about that, right? You're always worried about the agenda being hijacked. And today it was so strongly, you know, kind of anchored by our, you know, our speakers here. So that was extremely heartening. And for Dr. Sen to give us some solid, concrete ways in which to navigate this extremely confusing space. And it was wonderful speaking to him because he was giving us very tangible, practical advice on how to go about it. And what a amazing, wonderful conversation with, you know, around, you know, our Sarkar, Bazaar and Samaj, where we had mainstream political commentators talking about this issue, because ultimately that's where we want this issue to be taken, right, to be spoken in the mainstream. And they spoke so candidly with a sense of ownership of the piece. So I think we felt really hopeful that the conversation is on the right track. And of course, the two wonderful, amazing panels post-lunch. Nobody was tired and everyone was listening to each and every word that you all had to say. And I think we've kind of got a lot of takeaways to kind of go back and work on as we go forward. I just thought to take a couple of minutes to thank a few critical people. Of course, Rohini and Natasha. I don't think I mean, you are the reason why we're here today, so thank you so much. I want to thank the Good Creator marketing company. They are here, specifically Ashwij, Rahul, Sakshi, Simran, and Dima. You all have been amazing and wonderful to work with. Our wonderful resource people who are trainers at our workshop, Dr. Amit Sen, Altamash, Rahul Roy, the filmmaker, and Rahul Singh from GCC, who had participated in the workshop and helped to kind of shape that conversation. All the speakers today who participated in the conversation, Rahul Bose, Shambi Sharp, Rajiv Gowda, Dilip Cherian, Anish Gavande, Harish Sadani, Satish Singh, Yogesh Vaishnav, Alina Varghese, Kanta, Rukmini, Natasha, all of you, thank you for sparing that time. I also want to thank Center for Media Studies, Paramita and Vasanthi, who are partnering us with the research. All the 46 influencers who have, undertaken this amazing journey with us. And especially a call out for our panelists today, Saurabh, Amit Sagar, Shivam, Harjot, and Harshit. Our designers, the Litpasing, our filmmakers, Aishwarya and Anoop. I wish they were here. They've done a fantastic job with the film, all the, Habitat Center, printers, etc. And the entire CEQUIN team who've really worked tirelessly. But I do want to especially thank my kids and Sara's kids and all the young interns who taught us and told us how to do this, because actually those kids helped us to design this project. All those young interns who were working with us during the pandemic, and they were telling us how to navigate Instagram, because I had no clue, Sara had no clue. Yeah.
I do have a request.
Yes.
So I have one request as we're closing out, I imagine. We're done, right? Okay. So yes, as a foundation that's been supporting this work and championing this work, I think I'd really love for everyone in this room to think about how can we excite many more people into this work who are not in this room? How do we bring and build bridges with those who aren't the converted, who don't think like us, who aren't occupying these spaces? I think the influencers did talk about that to some extent. But like I said, there are still so many spaces in academia that aren't thinking about it. Bazaar is not thinking about it. Or how do we build bridges with markets? As a philanthropy, we have been constantly championing this cause, but it's difficult because how do we get other funders to think about something like this and continue to support this work? So just in your own ways, and of course if you have ideas to exchange some ways in which we can broaden this out, because it's hard going. And as Rohini also said, it's a multi-decadal, intergenerational piece of work, so it requires a lot of stamina. and how do we keep that stamina and bring more people into it? So I just wanted to leave with that request. Yeah.
I was talking about Nepal event. There used to be our friend Rahul Roy. He made some beautiful films at that time. I started thinking on these issues from there. So I wanted to thank him and do invite him whenever. Oh, amazing person.
We showed his film at the workshop. Wonderful. So and they interacted with him. Sara.
I think Laura said it all. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to everyone who's been a part of this conference, both behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, all the panelists from this morning, and to the entire CEQUIN team, all of you, Nida, Mariam, Bensi, Naseem, Zulfia, everyone, all of those, Priyanka and Amin, everyone has been working very hard on this, not just for today, for the conference, of course, but throughout with the influencers, the entire project. This is just kind of a culmination, or maybe not even a culmination, because culmination sounds like the end of something, and I don't think this is the end at all. This is just the beginning, with thanks to Rohini, and thank you so much, Natasha, for a great, let me call it a beginning, I think, rather than a culmination. It's really the beginning of this journey, and we're very excited to see where this is going to take us. We do hope that it's inspired a lot of you, if we're talking about influencers, if we're talking about inspiration. We hope that today's conversations, and as Natasha was saying, if we all in our own minds then can think about how can we take this forward? What can we do, both individually or in our own organizations or in our own businesses or our communities? How can we take some of the ideas that we've heard over here? How can we take this forward? How can we keep those embers alive? How can we keep these discussions alive? And we certainly would like to be part of those conversations so that these discussions don't end here. There's going to be a lot more that you're going to hear from us, because as you've seen, we've been recording the proceedings, so we're going to put things together in very interesting ways, so that this takes on, we hope, a life of its own. And do join us for the future journey of this. As I said, that was just the beginning. So thank you again to RNP for supporting us. And now we're going to have tea outside. Please do join us for tea and snacks. I don't know if we're playing the film again. Yeah. I mean, maybe we'll play it for those of you who had seen it in the morning. We can, start walking out, and we can have tea. And for those of you who maybe had not seen the short film, it's about 15 minutes. I would urge you to sit, or maybe bring your tea back and watch it. We can start it in about 5 minutes, because it gives you a really good taste of what this whole campaign was about.
Thank you so much, Sara ma'am and Laura ma'am, and thank you everyone on the panel. And I would like to invite the CEQUIN team to felicitate our panelists.